Now, in today's episode, we have a blast from the past. Here we have a fragrance that actually came out in 1973. And of course, I am kind of dedicating this video as a tribute to the late, great Paco Rabanne, who recently passed away. This is the original Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. I'm excited to give you my thoughts on this classic fragrance, so make sure to stay tuned. Before I begin today's episode and I give you my thoughts on the classic Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, and this is of course a classic from 1973. It's been around for so many decades now. I do want to start things off by saying that if you're a fan of fragrance related content, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. Hit the bell icon and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. It would really mean a lot to me. So this is a fragrance that, believe it or not, I actually wore all through high school. And of course, in high school, I didn't really have the discriminating taste that I do now, for lack of a better phrase. I used to wear fragrances like Paco Rabanne Pour Homme, which in hindsight, I'm actually very proud of it. I would wear Pie by Givenchy, among many, many others. Of course, there was Cool Water by Davidoff, so on and so forth. So here we have a fragrance that has some fougere elements to it. There is the lavender, the geranium. There's also clary sage, but then you have this green oak moss residing in the base with some musk and honey. And here you have that sort of 80s powerhouse, despite the fact that it came out in the 70s, but a lot of these green fragrances that came out in the 70s, like Polo Green, which was composed by Carlos Benaim, and also this fragrance, I think, are the epitome of masculine class and sophistication. And I'll also let you know how I think this one has aged. In any case, I'm excited to give you my thoughts on the smell. Let's start things off with the presentation. Right in the opening of this fragrance, you will get green on top of more green. It opens up with a heavy, thick burst of oak moss. Now, of course, oak moss is very earthy and verdant and resolute. And of course, if you've tried a bunch of other fragrances that contain oak moss, you know exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of these, green powerhouse fragrances, Pierre Cardin Pour Homme. This one actually gets compared to Bogart by Jacques Bogart. It also gets compared to Quorum by Antonio Puig. And I own all of those fragrances, and I can certainly vouch that this one definitely has that green, long-lasting, classic masculine quality about it. The lavender in here is very nicely done. It doesn't smell like a cleaning product or anything like that. I think a lot of people tend to associate it with like Fabuloso or something like that. It's not what you're going to get from this fragrance. You do get the clary sage, the geranium, a lot of these classic and classy masculine fougere qualities, but in the base you also have that oak moss, which is really the star of the show. And funny enough, I had a bottle many years ago, and I wore through the entire thing, and of course I hadn't smelled this in many years, and I said, you know what, just for nostalgia's sake, and also considering the fact that Paco Rabanne recently passed away, the designer, I said I would like to repurchase a bottle just to remind myself of what it smells like. And I am not disappointed. It's so satisfying. It's so nostalgic in many ways. And it actually does bring me back to high school, despite the fact that I attended high school really not too long ago. I'm not that old, or at least I'd like to think that I'm not. So here we have a fragrance that, as per, the mass criticism or whatever, I think there would be a lot of people out there who would consider this one dated or mature. I would say it conveys an air of maturity about it, but it's all a matter of personal preference. I personally really enjoy this style of fragrances. And, I've also reviewed a lot of fragrances from Rogue Perfumery. I think this is a house. Fragrances like Mousse Illuminé, for example, I think are fantastic oak moss based fragrances. So I really still do enjoy this ingredient. Fir balsam, vetiver, oak moss, cypress. There's a lot of green ingredients, and I think it just conveys this sort of timeless masculine quality. I do think though that once fragrances kind of enter a bit of an animalic territory, that can be a little polarizing and challenging. I'm thinking about Kouros by Yves Saint Laurent. But fragrances like this, certainly, they are not of the modern or contemporary sentiment. They don't have an overdose of tonka bean. They're not sweet. They don't smell like bubble gum. They don't have a lot of these, contemporary qualities that a lot of mass-marketed designer fragrances possess nowadays. But of course, if you have an extra $30 burning a hole in your pocket, you can go on over to Amazon like I did, and you can get yourself a bottle of this classic fragrance. And I will admit, I'm so happy to have this one in my collection once again for reference sake, but I've also spent a bit of time wearing it recently since I reacquired it. I actually wore this one like 3 days in a row, and the first day I bought it, I sprayed it inside the box just to remind myself of what it smells like, but then I kind of had a hankering, if you will, to wear it around the house, so I did actually spend a few days wearing it again, and this is on top of the years and years that I spent wearing it in high school. But in any case, that is my assessment on the smell. It's a green, lavender, clary sage, rosemary, herbal, aromatic, long-lasting, verdant composition. And I think it's beautifully done. And, considering the fact that the perfumer who composed this also composed a fragrance for Azzaro and Jewels by Dior. And, the perfumer hasn't actually done much. I think his name is Jean Martel. And given the fact that this has been around for so many decades, it's still incredibly popular even today. So I think that says a lot about the timelessness of this fragrance. And, it definitely has some redeeming qualities. Even many decades later, people come back to it because they love it. And I think it's a classic for a reason. Let's go ahead and finish things off with my overall assessment. Now, first up, in terms of the uniqueness and the overall smell, this fragrance, for the time period in which it was released, I believe was certainly unique. Definitely a lot of green elements, as one could imagine. The honey is not powdery or overly sweet. The musk is not animalic. It's very smooth. It's all about the oak moss, in my opinion. Longevity on this bottle was about 4.5 to 5 hours. I would imagine over the many decades since it's been around, it has been reformulated a number of times. So I got about 5 hours on my skin. Projection was great for the first half hour of application. It radiated within an arm's length. It became an elbow's length scent right around hour 3.5, a skin scent right around hour 5. In terms of the versatility, it leans traditionally masculine. I'm sure a lot of people would agree with me on that. It's great for casual and formal scenarios, as long as you like this style of fragrance, of course. Great for somebody who's a little bit older, a little bit more mature, I would say. And I think this one is great for all seasons. The performance isn't so, long-lasting that I would say, yes, wear this one only in the winter time. No, I think with 5 hours longevity, you can wear it in the hotter weather. It's not going to be overly cloying, but it also has a lot of dark green ingredients that evoke the colder weather. So I think it's a year-round type of a scent. And then in terms of the presentation, I think it's a very nice, classy, elegant presentation. It does definitely convey elegance, and it, on account of the color, also gives you an idea of what to expect in terms of the smell. My final verdict on this fragrance is it's classy, it's green, it's timeless, it's masculine. Of course, it is a bit mature leaning, but if you have an extra $30 or whatever it's going for nowadays, definitely check it out. I hope you enjoy it. And rest in peace, Paco Rabanne. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you took something of value from today's video, please do consider supporting the channel by subscribing to it. That was my review of Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Hope you enjoyed it. Hit the bell. Give this video a thumbs up. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.